Judicial Watch filed the lawsuit after the Justice Department refused to follow the law. I mean, doesn't that tell you a lot? That the Justice Department doesn't even follow the law on transparency. They're one of the most egregious abusers. Next up is another big issue, which again, the establishment media wants to ignore, which is election integrity. Again, dangerous territory for those of us concerned about social media censorship. Judicial Watch filed a FOIA lawsuit against the Department of Justice for communications between the DOJ and various left-wing groups concerning the Biden administration's outrageous decision to challenge Georgia's election integrity law. Judicial Watch filed the lawsuit after the Justice Department refused to follow the law. I mean, doesn't that tell you a lot? That the Justice Department doesn't even follow the law on transparency. They're one of the most egregious abusers. We asked for records about all documents and communications between the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, which is a hotbed of leftist radicals and partisans, and any of the following people in organization, including any, and those include ACLU Foundation of Georgia, American Civil Liberties Union, Legal Women Voters, Brennan Center for Justice, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, Common Cause, NAACP, Georgia State Conference, the NAACP, Campaign Legal Center, Fair Fight Action, Stacey Abrams, Perkins Coie, who was the big firm for the Democratic National Committee, and Hillary Clinton has been implicated in criminal activity, and Mark Elias, who at least until recently was a big lawyer there and is still involved in these election fights and one of the top lawyers for the left in terms of changing the rules and challenging election integrity measures. Now, Justice Department went into court with fake allegations about Georgia's conduct here and the state of the law to strike down their election law that sought to reform the law. It frankly didn't go far enough as far as I was concerned. It included strengthening voter ID requirements and some other restrictions on some of the out-of-control measures that were instituted using the excuse of COVID. Wrongly, in my view, by Georgia last year. And look, we've been around this, we've been doing this for years, and we know how it works. And there's been previous instances of the leftists running the Justice Department coordinating, sometimes improperly, with outside groups to target election laws and election issues that these far left groups have an interest in. As I said in our statement, the leftists who control the Justice Department have a long record of working hand in glove with extremist and partisan interest groups who oppose any efforts to make it harder to steal votes and steal elections. So, you know, the Georgia case is really outrageous because the lawsuit was essentially decimated by a decision issued by the Supreme Court in a left-wing challenge against Arizona's election integrity laws. And so, you know, the fundamental basis behind the Georgia challenge has been knocked out by the Supreme Court. And yet, of course, the Biden Justice Department is continuing to assault election integrity measures. Now, I conclude that if you oppose voter ID, you oppose citizenship verification, you want a system in place that encourages and makes it difficult to police fraud, it seems to me that type of agenda suggests you want the ability to steal elections and steal votes. And they're desperate right now to short circuit the efforts of states to implement security measures such as voter ID. And when we're asking for the Justice Department's coordination with the radical left to challenge these laws, we usually know there's something there. So I suspect there's something there. And the fact that they refuse to give us any information, one way or another, shows us they have something to hide. So this is the kind of basic work that needs to be done to expose the radical agenda to the light of day, and which is often it's one thing to say, look, I disagree with someone policy, but we have elections, we have elected representatives, and policies change, and they don't necessarily change in a way I agree with or you agree with politically. That's a different question of engaged in abuse of power, abusive tactics, breaking the rules to coordinate with outsiders in litigation that allegedly is supposed to be independent of these outsiders, and other misconduct. The leftist agenda too often is implemented lawlessly, and because they think following the rules gets in the way oftentimes. And so that's why Judicial Watch is so hated by the left, because we encourage and demand accountability for how the government acts. It's one thing to say, I don't like what the government's doing. It's another thing to say, I don't trust that the government is acting lawfully here, and there's misconduct behind what's happening here. And usually, in my experience as a conservative, with big government, with overreaching government comes big corruption. And usually that's all protected by big secrecy. And that's what Judicial Watch is trying to combat.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.